Today we are going to learn how to draw using thread. This is a skill called embroidery. The tools you're going to need is you're going to need some burlap, which is this kind of thicker kind of fabric, and when you look at burlap it's a little bit rougher of a texture and you can really see the warp and weft strings coming through. And you're going to notice there's some tape on the edge of your burlap as well, and please don't remove the tape because that's what's holding all of these pieces together. Alright, and you're going to need an embroidery loop, you need some thicker yarn, and your thicker plastic needle tool. I also like to use a stencil or a cookie cutter shape in order to trace my design first, but you can also just draw a design of your choice or just stitch as you go. And I'm using an oil pastel to kind of outline around my stencil so that I have a clear idea of where I want my thread to go. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is put your burlap onto your embroidery loop. So there's two parts of your loop. The plain side is going to go underneath, so I'm going to place that down. You're going to place your burlap on top. And then you're going to place the loop with the screw on the top part. And what this does is going to make it really nice and taut and tight, kind of like a drum. And then once you get that on there, you're going to want to tighten the screw so that it doesn't go anywhere. Even though this is nice and taut like a drum, we don't want to bang on it or push on it, otherwise it could pop out. Alright, so now this is nice and tight. It's going to make it a little bit easier for me to stitch through this fabric. Okay, so you're going to want to thread your yarn. Remember, you want about as long as your arm to get started. You don't need a threading tool for these types of needles because it's super easy to get this thread through. I don't like to tie a knot. I like to just hold it by the eye, but you do need to tie a knot on the other side. Make sure it is a double knot because you want it to be thicker than the kind of spaces in between these warp and weft strings so that it catches and doesn't go all the way through. So remember how we created our knot? We started with our U shape, circle, tie. Remember to hold it nice and tight with one hand as you're pulling it through. So again, I'm going to hold this hand still as I try to get this knot to go on top so that it is a double knot. And I even might make this a triple just to make it an extra big knot, otherwise it will go through the burlap. Ah, that's a nice big knot. Okay. So when you start your stitch, you want to start on the back side, not the front side, because we don't want to see the knot of our stitch. I'm going to just poke it through, pull. Hopefully this will catch. If it doesn't catch, again, just tie a better knot. In fact, I might just go ahead on the back side and tie this again. So that it's nice and thick. When you pull at it gently, it should not go through. So I tied that, oh boy, what was that, 3 or 4 times? Depends how thick your yarn is too. Thicker yarn, the better for this kind of burlap, which is pretty porous. Okay, so gently pulling it should not come through. All right, and after that, what I'm going to do is something called a running stitch, which is where I'm going to go down, and it's kind of up to you how far apart you want this. I'm going to go down and then back up to create almost like what looks like a dotted line. I'm going to go pretty close to where my last stitch was. And notice how I'm kind of poking until I get it to where I want it. It's going to be pretty close. Let me get a little bit closer here for you. So what this does is it creates a running stitch, which should look like a dotted line. Pull until it's all the way taut. Alright, we made it to finish our design, and what you want to do is you want to end it on the back side and you're going to want to tie a knot. So to tie a knot, I'm actually going to go kind of like when we're stitching. See, this was my first knot that I had. Alright, so So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, you can probably just tie a knot. I'm going to make a loop. You want to make sure you have enough string to do this. Make a loop, put it into the loop, kind of hold it still, and then I'm going to pull it out. So again, what I did is I just kind of created a loop, put it into the loop, and then pulled it nice and tight. And give it a little, make sure it doesn't, might then go one more time. All right, I'm going to trim any excess that I have. And then you should have your design. I can go in, I can add more details, but when you are done, you want to take it off of here. And then return your embroidery loop where you found it. And I like to keep them together and then make sure they are tight so that they don't come apart. And return it to your fiber center. All right, have fun creating.